We're finally back on the 78B. So it seems like I've been waiting forever to get the cylinder head back on this thing. My machinist has had a lot of difficulty getting the correct valve seats for it, and he has informed me now that we should have it back by the end of this week. But what I like to do when I'm in here, you got something this far apart, is go ahead and clean this up a little bit, especially when it's something that's been taking as long as this one has. Provide a little extra value to the customer for it taking so long. But we gotta get the camshaft out of this thing. In order to do that, I had to take the radiator out. Of course, to take the radiator out, you gotta take the lower splash panel out first. So the next thing I'm gonna have to do is take the harmonic balancer off and timing cover. So now I'm trying to take the bolt out of the center of the damper there, and I have used my cordless impact on it and absolutely will not budge. And I put a breaker bar on it with the thing in gear and someone holding the brake, and all I'm doing is slowly turning the engine over as if the clutch is slipping just a little bit, and it's just not budging yet. So I'm gonna have to fire up the air impact, and I even put a little bit of heat to it, not too much, just a little bit. Just, it almost feels like maybe someone put Loctite or something on it because it is just not moving. So I'm gonna have to get a bit creative to get that out of there, because the last thing I want to do is break that off. So after way too much time and effort, I finally got the bolt out of the crankshaft there and got the front of the motor tore apart. Now that thing's supposed to only be torqued to 70 foot-pounds, which means even a fairly weak impact should knock that thing out pretty quickly. I ended up putting the air to it and turning the air way up. And now there's two schools of thought of how to heat these things. One is just get it hot. Put a lot of heat into it and get the bolt really hot, and it should come loose. Now the other school of thought is if you put too much heat into that thing, then you actually soften the bolt itself and it could break off right there when you hit it with the impact. So what I chose to do was put a little bit of heat into it, then give it a few minutes for that heat to wick into the crankshaft. Then put a little bit more heat to it, and after a couple cycles of that, then put the impact on it. And when it didn't come loose, put a little more heat to it, give it a minute, and and just keep going back and forth until it finally came loose. And it doesn't appear, focus, it's not going to focus. Doesn't appear there was actually any Loctite on it. So I've never had one give me that much trouble coming out, but that one really gave me a lot of trouble. So here's the cam I pulled out, and it's pretty ugly. This one here is obviously really bad looking. This one's not terrible. Not quite as pointy as it should be. The tip isn't quite as good as it should be, but it's not terrible. This one's, looking pretty rough. That one is at least smooth, and it's looking pretty decent. But this one here's, top's coming off of that one. It's looking pretty rough. And this one's starting to go. You can see some nicks and stuff in that one there. So yeah, cam was pretty well toast, and that one doesn't look so great. It doesn't. So even the good lobes were still looking a little iffy, and weren't going to be much longer before they started wiping. Now this is a bit of a point of contention on the internet, but I still go with the idea that the wrong oil can cause this. If you're not using a high zinc oil, now all lubrication engineers will tell you what they replaced it with is better than what we had before, but I've never seen this problem except for I think like once or twice where people were actually using the high zinc oils. But I do see this fairly common when people are just using whatever oil, just using Castrol or whatever else they can get at the store without making sure it's high zinc. So as a quick comparison, here's a brand new cam. That's what the lobe should look like compared to that one. You see how much lower it is. Even like on this one here, you can tell, like this one here, the shape is actually still pretty close, but it's so rough there. It's getting ready to just go flat like this one here was. It won't take very much longer, but that's what they should look like right there. So it's really easy to forget to put the key back in from the old cam into the new cam before you put it into the engine. I've done it too many times to count. But you put it back on there and get the gear on the end of it, because once you slide it back in, it'll kind of stop right here. You got to be able to get a hold of it to kind of turn it and get it into the oil pump gear. Engage the oil pump gear. So that's just a little quick tip there. Now I like to run through the cam timing and actually degree it in every time I install a cam. Because the one time I didn't do that, it turns out the cam was ground pretty far off and the car ran like a dog, and I ended up, it was something like 8 degrees off. I had to put a 4-degree keyway in it to get it back where, and then it ran just fine after that. So I'm not going to run through that here in this video, but if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments below and maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. So after running through the cam timing, it turns out that this one was actually correct. I didn't have to do anything to move it. So I buttoned the front of the motor back up. Now I'm starting to put the new cylinder head together, which the head on this thing turned out to be cracked, but I ended up having a good head that was already sitting at the machine shop with a stack of heads that I was getting there. I was up there to get crack tested. We checked that one, it tested good, and we got that one all ready to go for this one. Now the next issue I got to deal with is the gasket set. Now I ordered the gasket set for the earlier engine because this does have dual SUs on it rather than the Stromberg that it originally came with. That way I would have all the carb mounting gaskets and everything. Now I like using these pan gaskets. They're really good gaskets. But they were out of stock for quite a long time. And when they came back in stock, I ordered 4 sets, put them on the shelf. Well, it seems that once they got them back up in production, maybe they moved production somewhere. Because I do notice the collars are slightly different. It's now green instead of black. But evidently, somebody at the factory does not know how to count, because they put 1 of everything in the package. So there's only 1 valve seal instead of 8. There's only 1 downpipe gasket instead of 2. There's only 1 air cleaner mounting gasket instead of 2. And there's only 1 carb mounting gasket instead of 6. So yeah, fun.